Hey everybody, this is Brian from ImagineX, and today I'm here to show you a little bit about Ultimate Ice for Iray. First of all, let me start by saying thank you for purchasing Ultimate Ice for Iray, and let's get right into this and see how we use this. So once you've got the product installed, you're going to come into your My Dad's 3D library here and go down to Props, expand to Props, and you'll see Ultimate Ice for Iray here. Under the main folder, we've got a couple of subfolders. We've got Ice and Frost shaders, Liquid shaders, Props, and Smart Props. So let's start with the easiest thing first. So let's go with the props. So these props are all just normal props, just like any other product you have. Double click on one of these and it's going to load in the center and on the floor. And I wanted to show you, I've just set up a quick scene here so that we don't have to wait while we're doing this. I've got a little table loaded in here and just one HDRI. There's no additional lights in the scene. So I want to show you if you were to load the glass, for instance. That glass is loading on the floor and in the center. So we can go ahead and take the glass and move it up here onto this table. And we will then, there's our glass. And I wanted to show you this because, as you see, I loaded the glass. It did load on the center and on the floor, and I lifted it up and onto this table, and I did that on purpose to show you the smart props. So if you select this glass and go back to the Ultimate Ice for Iray folder and go to Smart Props, in Smart Props, these props are all designed to go into a container, so a pre-made container such as the glass. So now that we've got the glass loaded here and we've moved it up onto the table, we can move it anywhere we want in the scene. And these smart props for this glass will automatically pop into the glass regardless of where the glass is in our scene. So for instance, if I just come in here with the glass loaded, with the glass selected, if I come over here and select glass 1 ice, you see that it's loaded ice cubes inside the glass. So we can do the same thing with the liquid. With the glass still selected, we can choose glass 1 liquid, and now you can see we've got a glass with liquid in it. Basically, we would follow this same procedure for all of these smart props, so you can see what they're created for. It's very clear here. So the ice bucket ice is going to load ice into our ice bucket. And we've got round ice and we've got regular square ice cubes. I also included some liquid, so if you wanted to get more of a melted effect, you could load liquid in there as well. And pardon the dog running around in the background here. Anyways, so I want to show you this same procedure with another one of the props. So let's go ahead and select the glass and delete it, and that'll delete everything that was inside of it as well. If we go back to props, let's go ahead and load this ice bucket. Go to Scene tab, select the ice bucket. I'm going to take it off of Viewport Render here real quick, and we'll just move this ice bucket up here on top of our table. And once we've got that positioned on the table, I want to show you. So let's go ahead and go back into the Viewport Render mode here. And the lid is separate from the bucket, but it's parented to it. So we could move this and make it look open, lay the lid over here or whatever we want to do. But right now I'm going to hide that, and I'm going to go back and select the bucket, and I'm going to go back to my smart props, and I'm going to select the ice bucket ice here. And as you can see, it loads the ice right into the bucket. And so now, no matter where we move the bucket or how we move the bucket, you can see the ice stays with it. Okay? So that's how you can use that. And then you can go in and position the lid if you wanted to separately. If we turn that lid back on, you can see the ice is kind of sticking through it a little bit. But we could bring it off to the side, and we could rotate it so that it looks like it's, sitting on the side of the bucket, right? On here, like this. And so now we've got an open ice bucket, right? So now if we select the ice bucket and delete it, it's going to delete the lid and everything and the ice and everything because it automatically parents them together. So that's how you're going to use the props and the smart props together. The ice machine and stuff, I have this little table set up. So obviously an ice machine, if we come in here and select the ice machine, obviously the ice machine is going to be much larger and it's not going to fit on the bucket. On the table. So I'm not going to do anything with those right now. They work the exact same way as the glasses and the ice bucket do. So let's take a peek at the shaders real quick. So we've got ice and frost shaders in here. So you can see we've got 11 shaders. We've got frost shader 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We've got ice shaders 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now 4 is a melting style, and I'm going to show you something with that here in a couple of minutes. But this is a way to rotate the texture or the shader, so that in case you're putting it on something that was UV mapped in a 90-degree rotation, we'd be able to rotate it back so that our ice is dripping more in the correct directions. So I'm going to show you that in a couple of minutes. But real quick, let's go to the ice shaders, and I want to show you what I did was I loaded this cat statue. This is from a product by gosh, I can't even remember right now, Slosh, and it's a bathroom product, but it happened to have this little statue in it, which I like a lot. So let's do the shaders. So with shaders, we're going to select our object. We want to come over here to the Surfaces tab with that object selected. We can expand this main menu here and see what materials are actually on this object. So it only has one material. I'm going to select just the main, and that's going to select, if there was more materials in here, it would select them all. And we'll see that in a couple of minutes when we do something different. So right now we've got this cat here, and we've got the materials selected in the Surfaces tab. That's very important. It won't work unless you have it selected here. And let's go ahead to the whole object. We're going to apply Ice Shader 1. And with that, you can see that our cat is now a block of ice. And as that renders out, it'll get clearer and clearer, and you'll see some nice shapes and bubbles and things like that in the ice, and it really has a nice realistic look to it. Now I wanted to show you that you can take this a step further and make this look even more realistic and really cool, and this will show you that there's many options you can do with this product. So with this cat selected, I'm going to come up here to Create, and I'm going to create a new geometry shell for the cat. And I like to call this like outer ice layer. You can do it in here in the label. Make sure it's parented and accept. Now we've got a geometry shell, which is right here, outer ice layer, right? Same material here. Select it again, and on that one we're going to put Ice Shader 2. And look at the effect we get from that. Now we've got double layered ice here. So as you can see by the tooltips here, that Ice Shader 2 is much wetter looking than Ice Shader 1. So Ice Shader 1 is a really good one for your main material, and Ice Shader 2 is really good to overlay that with a geometry shell. So you can see what's happening, this neat effect that we're getting here on this cat. So with that being said, we could do all kinds of things to it. Now if we wanted to, instead of this, we could do a melting ice shader on the outside. So let's replace it with that. And now once that renders out a little bit, you'll be able to see that there's some drips and drops and things to make it look a little bit more melted. And again, I apologize for this dog in the background running around. But anyways, so you can see how that operates. You can start to see in here now that we're getting some drops and drips, and the more that renders through, the more you're going to see of that. Now this one here, this is really more of a utility. What this is going to do is this is going to take the same shader and it's going to rotate it by 90 degrees. So as we look at this, some of the drops might look like they're going sideways, or they might be fine. That's something that you'll have to look at on each object that you apply it to. But let's say that these were going completely sideways and we wanted to change it. All we have to do is come in here and double click this, and now our drops and drips are going to be 90-degree rotated. So that's really, really handy to have. Now you can already see that these drops are now going in the correct direction for the object rather than going sideways on the object. So this is a reason why I did this, is just to give you an option, because you don't know how somebody's mapped their object. And sometimes the UV mapping might actually be going crossways instead of up and down. And in that case, you'd want to use this. Okay, so that's what that's for. So now that we've done that, let's take a peek at some of the liquid shaders, because they're very interesting too. And I wanted to point out that you can add multiple shells to this. There's all kinds of stuff you could do to really, really make this interesting. And the possibilities are pretty much endless. So let's go back to the scene tab, and I'm going to hide this cat. Okay, and its shell. So the cat's gone. Now I've got a character loaded here, and this character, I went ahead and, pardon the nudity here, there we go. And with this, what I did was I ran D-force on the outfit, and I got it to kind of what I thought would be an interesting position. So the reason she fits on the table here is, after running D-force and stuff on this, I scaled her down so that she can fit on this table, and we're going to create like a little figurine with this character. So first thing I'm going to do is select the character, and I'm going to come over to the Surfaces tab, and here's the character here, and I'm going to expand that, and I'm going to go to Surfaces. And if we select the word surfaces here, you'll see that it's going to select all of the surfaces for that character. And that's what I'm going to do for right now, okay, just to show you. So let's make this kind of like an ice figurine. So we're going to go back to our shaders, and I'm going to go ahead and select shader 1, ice shader 1, because I just happen to like it a lot. So I'm going to double click on that, and at that point her body has now become ice. And I wanted to show you how you can use these things to make some really interesting figures, okay? So we're going to come back in here, and I'm going to create a geometry shell for that. So with Kira selected, I'm going to do create new geometry shell, and I'm going to call it, just like I always do, I'm going to call it outer ice layer, and make sure it's parented, and accept. And once we do that, whoops, I misspelled outer. Oh well, we've got outer ice. That's fine. So now you see all the materials are here again. So we're going to select them, and we're going to come over to Ice Shader 2, and I'm going to double click that. And now we've got a really neat looking, her body is all ice, and it looks really neat. So now let's go ahead and do something with the liquid shaders. So we're going to go up to Kira, and we see her clothing is here, right? We've got the bikini top, the bikini bottom, and the beach cover-up. So let's start with the beach cover-up. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to go to my liquid shaders, and we've got these different liquids here. So I'm going to select the entire cover-up, and you could come in here and select one deal. So in other words, like on the hem, if we wanted to put one of these shaders on the hem, we could do that. We could do a different shader on the insert, a different shader on the edge, and the other insert, the neckline insert, and then just the main part of the cover up. And you can get all kinds of really cool effects going on. So you can see this just has endless possibilities. So if I select beach cover up, just the entire thing, it's going to select all of it. And let's go ahead and put this red liquid shader on there. And so now we see that we've got the liquid shader going on the outfit itself. Now this part in here does kind of look a little bit strange, and that's because we're seeing through the D-force, when I ran the D-force, it's so close to the body and the rest of the outfit that we're actually seeing portions of it through here. And that's what we want, right? Because if we come back to our scene tab and we select, let's say, the bikini top, we could come over here, select the entire top, go back to our shaders, and we could put that same shader there, right? And then go back to our scene tab, select the bikini bottom, and select the whole thing. We go back to our shaders, and we select the same red liquid shader again. And now we've got kind of an interesting thing going on here. It looks kind of like a blown glass sculpture, you could call it. Or it can be ice if you want, whatever you want to regard it as. And we can do the same thing with the hair. So if we take the hair and come over here to surfaces, you can see it's got a lot of different materials. And that's okay. Just select the main, come in here, and let's do something like, how about this one? And that's going to apply that red wine liquid shader onto her hair. And as you can see, we've got a really, really interesting look. In fact, let's go ahead and come into our camera, and I'm going to turn off the depth of field. And so we can come in closer on this without having to do a bunch of adjustments. And you can see what we've got here. It's, you know, obviously because it's liquid and or ice, you know, it's going to take a minute to render through. But I'm going to change this here to portrait so we can see more of the figurine. And now we could frame that in. If I just go ahead and select Kira and frame it, there we go. And now I can get it a little closer. And you can see that effect that we're getting, which is just, it's awesome. I have been goofing around with this for weeks now, and I can tell you, you can really, really get some interesting looks out of this. Like I say, I think the possibilities are pretty much endless. And, you know, you can pick and choose what materials you'd like to place the shaders on. You just have to remember it's really important to make sure that the materials are selected before you try to put any of these shaders on, because they're not material presets, they are shader presets. And that's how that's going to work. So I think we've pretty much covered what I wanted to show you, what I wanted to cover with you. The bottom line is just remember that you've got your props here. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and take a peek. We'll do this real fast. We'll take a quick peek. I'm going to go ahead and hide Kira and her clothing, and her eyelashes, and her hair. And that way we will be in her shell. And we'll be done with that. We'll go ahead and hide this table. And let's back up. And let's go ahead and load one of these larger props like the ice machine. Okay, so there's the ice machine. And if we take a peek at that rendered, see what that looks like. So there's our ice machine. And I did load a floor in here just so that we could have a little bit of reference. Oops, that would be the incorrect thing to do there. Select the floor. And I'm going to move the floor over this way and then back a little bit like this. And so now you can see it on the floor, and you can see, so if we select the lid here and go to our parameters tab, you've got an open and close here, so you can open and close this lid. And I like to do a little magic trick. So we've got the lid closed. If I open it, you'll see that the machine itself is empty. And let's close that back up, and we're going to select the main body of the machine. Come back into our smart props and go down and look for ice machine ice. Double click that, and it doesn't appear that anything has really happened. However, if we come back into the door and open it, you'll see that our machine is now filled with ice. And so that makes it really easy to fill the machine with ice instead of trying to use these individual cubes that I've made. But let's go ahead and quick and take a peek at those. So if I come in here and go down here closer to the floor, let's load this ice cube here. It's kind of a melted cube. So I'm going to select it and frame it. And you can see now there we've got a little bit melted cube loaded. Okay, so that's that. These cubes can be loaded and instanced if you want, or you could load a whole bunch of these cubes, or load one of these and one of the regular cubes, and then you could use a product like Ultra Scatter Pro to scatter them around your scene if you wanted to, and that would be fine. Let me go ahead and change this. Change this back over here to 1920, so we've got a bigger area to look at. So I wanted to show you a couple of these scatters. So the scatter ice props are really useful. You can use them to simulate ice falling from something or whatever you want. But if we just come in here and look at some of these, like we've got this one, so you've got some scattered ice cubes laying around, and what's interesting is to take these, and if you were to add in let's say a melted cube, right, and since I can't see which one it is right offhand, I'm going to do that and just get this here, and we could add this and we could make some instances of the melted cube around, and then we could put a puddle underneath of it. So I want to show you the puddle props. So if you come down here, you've got 4 different puddles to choose from. I'm going to choose number 1 here, and as you see, we've got a puddle under our ice now. These are fully scalable. You can scale them down as small as you need. If you want to put it under just a couple of cubes, for instance, if we wanted to move this over here where the melted cube is and scale it down even more, we could have it just look like this one cube here is melting and the other ones haven't started yet. So these are great. These can be scaled up or down into any size that you wish. And so you could use them under the ice machine, you could use them on a floor, you could use them to make puddles, you could use them with any other product you wanted to, and get some nice reflections, and you've got some depth in the puddles, and they look really nice. So with that being said, let's go ahead and I'm going to delete these 3 items here out of the scene, and I want to go back and show you that we've also got an ice sphere. These are really popular today in putting in drinks, and especially like alcoholic drinks and things like that. But you can see what we're working with. We've got a nice ice sphere, and again, this sphere can be scaled up, and you're still going to have the same realistic effect as you had at a smaller size. So if we want to take this way up, we can make this big, and boom, you've got a really nice looking cube. And if we go to surfaces, you'll see that on these I've already applied the Ice Shader 1 and Ice Shader 2. We've got Ice Shader 1 for our inner and Ice Shader 2 for our outer. And we could change that. We could take the outer, right, and with it selected here, we could come over and change that, let's say, to the drippy one. Let's do that. So now we've got a nice dripping ball of ice there, and we come into our props directory and we can load a puddle for that. Let's say, since it's just one big cube or sphere, you see we can load that, and oops, wrong item, and we can move that around and place it wherever we want, make it as big or as small as we want. And as you can probably tell, the possibilities for this product is really endless. I mean, you can have a lot of fun with this. You can do a lot of different things. So real quick now, I want to go ahead and show you the frost shaders and just quick show you how that works, because with the frost shaders, so let me get something up here that we can use. Let me go here and let's see who's got here. Let's go in here and get this. I know that there's a mug type steel mug thing in here that looks pretty cool. Let's get this. Okay, so now we've got that loaded on the floor. I'm going to select it and frame it. And so now we've got some nice light coming off from the side here, so it's going to look nice. So if we get this, so one thing I wanted to explain about the frost shaders, which is different than the ice shaders. With the frost shade, or with the ice shaders, we're oftentimes looking to replace the main materials on an object to make the object look like it is solid ice. With frost shaders, we want to maintain our object's material, original material. So we don't want to put the frost, we don't want to replace this material here, because that's going to turn it all into ice, right? We want frost on the outside of our cup. So to do that, I'm going to make sure that the cup is selected, and I'm going to create a geometry shell. And I'm going to call that Frost Layer 1. Make sure it's parented. And with Frost Layer 1 selected here, I'm going to choose Frost Shader 1. And as you can see that quickly, we've got frost on the outside of our mug, and it looks pretty darn good. All right, and you've got that. Change the lighting. This is 1 HDRI, by the way. I know I already told you that, but just so you know, there's no additional lighting in this scene. So this is the effect you're going to get just simply by creating a geometry shell and applying a frost shader. So if we take a peek at Frost Shader 2, you see that it's a little bit different. It's got a little bit different coverage on the cup. And 3 is a little bit heavier. And 4 is a little bit more subtle. So Frost Shader 4 is kind of more like, you might use that on glass, you know, a beer mug or something, or really anything you want to. These can be used on characters. These can be used on literally anything. There's just no limit to this. Okay. And number 5 is a little bit more spotty. And number 6 is extremely heavy. So number 6 has got your really heavy frost applied. Okay. And you can see how it's applying to all the different sections of the cup. You don't see a bunch of creases. You don't see any kind of seamage. It's just really nice the way that covers. Okay. So that's how you're going to use the frost shaders. And that's pretty much it. But before we go, I want to just show you this on a character because it's really interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this cup. I'm going to come back to the scene and I'm going to unhide Kira again. And let's find her. Where'd she go? There she is, way up there. Oh yeah, that's right, because our table. So if we bring the table back, yeah, she's on that table. And let me frame her in our view. And so where we left off was we had her as an ice figure, right? So let's go ahead and instead of going through replacing all that because it's going to take a long time, let me just add another character back in. Get rid of this, and we'll add, let's add just anybody here. It doesn't even matter. So let's take this character, and it's going to be giant, obviously, because we're zoomed into this table. Okay, and now that she's reloaded, I'm going to select all of her surfaces, right? And I could change anything, but right now, let's make a shell. So I'm going to create a new geometry shell. Again, frost layer. And now we've got this layer above her skin. So I just want to show you before I do any of the shaders here and get it into rendered mode. Okay, so now we've got that. So now on the frost layer, I'm going to select all of it and I'm going to apply the Frost Shader 1. And as you see, it is applying frost to her entire body, and I don't want to have to show nudity and stuff, so I'm not going to zoom out much more than this. Now you can see that because the way the UVs are created for the characters, sometimes you're going to get this where you're going to have seams in here because the frost is covering so thick on her that you may end up with some seams. You can either clone stamp those out in Photoshop later on your post work, Or you can choose different shaders that maybe aren't as heavy on the edges and you won't see. Like Frost Shader 2, you notice our seam is gone there now. So we've got a very cool looking frosty character. And you can do this on hair, you can do this on characters, you can do this on all your objects. Now one thing that I usually will do is I will not put the frost shaders on any part of the eyes. So we can, take off cornea, we can take off the eye moisture, the irises and the pupils and the sclera, and then apply our frost shader. And at that point it won't be covering her eyes. But then again, depending on the effect you want to go for, you might want it to be on the eyes. So anyways, that is in a nutshell, very quickly, how to use Ultimate Ice for Iray. And I hope you have a lot of fun with this product. I got to tell you, I had a blast creating this and just experimenting with it. It's just crazy all the things you can do. So that being said, I hope you enjoy the product and thank you for purchasing. And I also wanted to let you know that if you have any questions about this product or any other ImagineX product, you can reach me at imaginex3d@gmail.com, and I'm going to list that here on the video. And I just want you to have fun with this product. So thank you much and enjoy.